The aroma of aged paper and brewing coffee always greeted Ilara as she unlocked the door to The Written Word. This beloved local bookstore, a vibrant sanctuary nestled in the heart of the community, was more than just a business. It was her grandmother's legacy, a tangible piece of her family's history, and a beacon for countless readers. Ilara, with her inherent optimism and unwavering dedication, poured her soul into preserving this institution. For years, the bookstore had been a thriving hub, its wooden shelves consistently stocked, its cozy reading nooks always occupied, a true symbol of tradition flourishing amidst modern change. However, beneath the comforting surface, subtle shifts in the economic landscape began to stir. The digital tide, once a distant hum, grew louder with each passing month. Online retailers offered unparalleled convenience and aggressive pricing, slowly eroding the foot traffic that had once been a given. Operational costs, too, crept upwards: utility bills, supplier prices, and even the cost of specialty coffee beans for their popular cafe corner. Ilara, ever the optimist, initially viewed these as minor inconveniences. Her established customer base, a loyal legion of local patrons, seemed resilient enough to weather any small storm. She believed in the enduring power of a physical book and the unique community experience her store offered. Then came the first undeniable crack in her carefully constructed world. The city's largest employer, a manufacturing plant that had anchored the local economy for decades, announced a significant round of layoffs. Many of The Written Word's most regular customers, those who reliably purchased new releases and attended weekly book club meetings, suddenly found themselves facing unemployment. The immediate impact was stark. Sales dipped noticeably, not just a gentle decline, but a sharp, concerning drop. For the first time, a cold tendril of financial worry snaked around Ilara's heart. The bookstore, once a source of comfort and stability, now felt vulnerable. Unbeknownst to Ilara, a new force was already at play, a shadow stretching across the familiar streets of her town. Magnus, a real estate developer whose name was whispered with a mix of awe and apprehension, had begun acquiring properties. Shrewd, ruthless, and driven by an insatiable hunger for profit, Magnus saw the city not for its history or its community, but as a chessboard for his grand designs. He spoke of modernization, of progress, but his vision often meant the erasure of the past. Initially, his acquisition seemed unrelated to Ilara's bookstore. Small, dilapidated buildings on the outskirts of the commercial district. But his influence was a creeping vine, gradually encircling the very heart of the town. The pressure on Ilara escalated with relentless speed. Suppliers, feeling the pinch themselves, became less flexible with payment terms. Her landlord, citing rising property taxes, hinted at a significant rent increase. Ilara fought back with every creative fiber of her being. She organized more community events, introduced author readings, and even hesitantly launched an online presence for The Written Word, complete with local delivery. Yet despite her tireless efforts, she felt like she was perpetually running uphill, the ground beneath her constantly shifting. The economic currents were simply too strong, too swift. The true devastation, however, arrived not as a slow erosion, but as a sudden, brutal blow. Ilara's longtime business partner, a man she had trusted implicitly and who handled the back-end financial dealings of the building, confessed his grave error. Secretly struggling with mounting personal debt, he had sold his share of the property, the very land upon which The Written Word stood, to Magnus. The revelation hit Ilara like a physical assault. The betrayal was profound, leaving her gasping for air, feeling utterly alone and exposed. Her world, once so stable, now teetered on the brink of collapse. Just days later, a crisp official letter arrived, bearing Magnus's imposing seal. He was now a co-owner of the property, and his message was clear: sell her remaining share to him, or face a forced buyout and the inevitable demolition of The Written Word. The future, once a comforting certainty, had dissolved into an abyss of uncertainty. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The ultimatum from Magnus: delivered with such cold, calculated precision, initially plunged Ilara into a profound despair. The betrayal by her partner, the looming threat to her grandmother's legacy, the very foundation of her existence. It was an emotional maelstrom. She spent a night wrestling with a suffocating sense of defeat, the scent of old books in her apartment suddenly feeling like a funeral shroud. Yet, as dawn broke, piercing through the gloom, something within her ignited. It wasn't just anger, though, that burned fiercely. It was a primal, unyielding determination. This wasn't merely about saving a business anymore. It was about protecting a sanctuary, a symbol, a community's heart. Her motivation shifted from preservation to an all-out fight for survival. Ilara knew she couldn't face Magnus alone. She began by confiding in her most loyal customers, weaving a narrative of honest vulnerability and fierce resolve. The news spread like wildfire through the small, tightly knit community. People who had frequented the written word for decades, who had found solace and friendship within its walls, were outraged. Among them was a young, tech-savvy activist named Maya, whose eyes gleamed with a passionate idealism. Maya, a regular at the bookstore's poetry nights, immediately offered her expertise. "We can fight this digitally, Ilara," she declared, her voice brimming with youthful energy. "Magnus thrives in the shadows. Let's bring his intentions into the light." Together, they launched a digital campaign, creating social media pages, petitions, and a dedicated website, all designed to expose Magnus's manipulative tactics and rally public support. Magnus, however, was not one to be easily outmaneuvered. He responded with a swift and insidious counterattack. Rumors began to circulate through local channels. The written word was struggling financially long before Magnus's involvement. Ilara was a poor businesswoman. The building was structurally unsound and a danger to the community. His well-placed contacts in local media even ran thinly veiled articles questioning Ilara's competence and the bookstore's viability. Concurrently, his legal team initiated a series of aggressive maneuvers, sending intimidating letters to Ilara and even to some of her more vocal supporters, threatening lawsuits for defamation and interference with business dealings. The pressure was immense, a constant gnawing anxiety that chipped away at Ilara's resolve. Sleepless nights became her new normal. The financial strain was relentless, forcing her to dip into her meager personal savings. The personal attacks, though often indirect, stung deeply. There were moments when the weight of it all threatened to crush her. During one particularly bleak afternoon, an elderly, wise customer, Mrs. Albright, found Ilara slumped over the counter, tears silently tracing paths down her cheeks. Mrs. Albright, a woman whose life had seen more seasons than most, gently took Ilara's hand. "Ilara," she began, her voice soft but firm. "This place isn't just about books. It's about stories, about connection, about memory. It's about what we build together. That's a value Magnus can never understand, nor can he destroy." Her words were a balm, a powerful reminder of the true, intangible value of the written word beyond mere commerce. Fortified by Mrs. Albright's wisdom and Maya's unwavering support, Ilara plunged deeper into research. They meticulously combed through local zoning laws, property deeds, and historical records, searching for any weakness in Magnus's seemingly impenetrable armor. And then, a glimmer of hope. Maya, with her sharp eye for detail, discovered an obscure environmental protection clause related to a small, forgotten stream that ran beneath a portion of the property Magnus had acquired adjacent to the written word. This clause, if applicable, could halt development, or at least significantly complicate Magnus's plans. It was a potential legal avenue, a chink in his formidable legal and financial fortress. Armed with this newfound information and buoyed by the burgeoning community support, Ilara decided to take the fight public. A community meeting, ostensibly about future urban development, provided the perfect stage. As Magnus, radiating an aura of self-importance, began to present his vision for a modernized downtown, Ilara, stepping forward from the ranks of concerned citizens, calmly but forcefully interjected. She presented her case, detailing his manipulative tactics, the misinformation campaign, and the specific legal loophole they had uncovered. The room erupted in a murmur of shock and outrage. Cornered and visibly agitated, Magnus's veneer of composure cracked. In a fit of pique, he snarled, "This isn't just about profit, Ilara. Your grandmother, she ruined my family's textile business decades ago. This is about making things right." The revelation hung in the air, a chilling confirmation that Magnus's actions were fueled not just by greed, but by a deep-seated personal vendetta against Ilara's family. The courtroom buzzed with an almost palpable tension, the air thick with anticipation. Ilara, though nervous, stood taller than she ever had, the weight of her community's hope resting squarely on her shoulders. Magnus, his face a mask of controlled fury, sat across the aisle, flanked by his formidable legal team. The judge, a stoic woman known for her meticulous attention to detail, listened intently as Ilara's legal counsel presented the Environmental Protection Clause Maya had unearthed. It was a strong argument, but Magnus's lawyers were adept at obfuscation, attempting to dismiss it as a minor technicality. Then came Ilara's moment. She took the stand, her voice clear despite the tremor in her hands. She spoke not just of zoning laws, but of legacy, of community, of the countless lives the written word had touched. She recounted Mrs. Albright's words, painting a vivid picture of the bookstore as a living, breathing entity, a sanctuary in a rapidly changing world. As she spoke, her gaze met Maya's, who offered a reassuring nod. The elderly, wise customer, Mrs. Albright herself, sat in the front row, her eyes shining with pride. But the true turning point arrived when Ilara, with a dramatic flourish, produced a worn, leather-bound journal. It was her grandmother's, meticulously kept, filled with elegant script and intricate financial notations. Within its pages, hidden amongst decades of business records, Ilara had discovered a series of letters and contracts detailing a past business dispute between her grandmother and Magnus's father. The documents unequivocally proved that Magnus's father had engaged in deceptive practices, leading to the collapse of Ilara's grandmother's initial venture into textile supply, which had indirectly impacted Magnus's family business, but certainly did not ruin it as he claimed. More damningly, the journals contained a specific entry regarding a loan Magnus's father had taken, using the very property where the written word now stood as collateral, a loan that was fraudulently obtained and never fully repaid. This revelation exposed Magnus's vendetta as not only unfounded, but rooted in his own family's past transgressions. It was the critical document that completely undermined Magnus's legal claims and revealed his fraudulent practices. The judge's gavel struck, a sharp, decisive sound that echoed through the stunned courtroom. Magnus's face, already pale with anger, drained of all color. The evidence was irrefutable. The court ruled in Ilara's favor, not only upholding the environmental clause, but also exposing Magnus's manipulative tactics and the historical deceit of his family. The legal and financial repercussions for Magnus were swift and severe. His carefully constructed empire, built on a foundation of ruthless ambition and inherited bitterness, began to crumble. The media, once swayed by his influence, now turned on him, exposing his unethical dealings and his personal vendetta. There was no redemption arc for Magnus, only the hollow echo of his own ambition. He retreated from public life, his name synonymous with corporate malfeasance. In the aftermath, the written word was not merely saved, it was reborn. The community rallied around Ilara, pouring in support, their loyalty cemented by the shared struggle. The bookstore became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the enduring value of tradition and the power of collective action. Ilara, though deeply scarred by the ordeal, emerged not just as a business owner, but as a respected leader and a fierce advocate for local enterprises. The crisis had also forced Ilara to adapt. She embraced technology, launching an e-commerce platform for rare books and hosting virtual author readings, seamlessly integrating digital innovation with the bookstore's classic charm. The written word became a hybrid model, proving that tradition and innovation could not only coexist, but thrive together. The community, having witnessed the fight firsthand, learned the profound importance of supporting local businesses in an increasingly homogenized world. Ilara, never forgetting the support she received, established a community fund named the Written Word Fund, dedicated to providing grants and mentorship to other struggling local businesses. Her grandmother's journals, once a source of legal victory, now became a guiding light for future entrepreneurs. Years later, Ilara stood by the large bay window of the Written Word, observing the bustling activity within. Children giggled in the new dedicated reading nook, teenagers browsed graphic novels, and elderly patrons discussed literature over steaming mugs of coffee. The scent of paper and coffee still permeated the air, but now it carried an added note of triumph. She had not only saved her family's dream, but had inspired a movement, creating a legacy far grander than she could have ever imagined. The economic tides would continue to shift, but the human spirit, resilient and unwavering, would endure, finding solace and strength within the welcoming walls of the Written Word.